Well done. Okay, it is 7 o'clock. The gang is all here. I hereby call to order this Board of Education regular meeting for Monday, February 22nd. If everyone can take themselves off mute and join me in a pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all. Okay, so I'll start us off with the chairman's report. A couple of things. First, I just want to take a few minutes to talk about open choice, try to clear up a few misperceptions I see in the community and clarify where we are at this point. First off, the purpose of the open choice program, as according to the State Department of Education, there are three. One, improve academic achievement. Two, reduce racial, ethnic, and economic isolation. And three, provide a choice of educational programs. That's what the State Department of Education lists as the reasons, the purposes of that program. The lofty goals, I'm sure we can all agree, would be worthwhile to attain. Now, we'll be voting on in a few hours.
Jonathan, you came in and out. Jonathan,
I came in and out.
Mm-hmm.
Can you hear me now? Okay, so the purposes of open choice, according to the State Department of Education, there are three. One, improve academic achievement. Two, reduce racial, ethnic, and economic isolation. And three, provide a choice of educational programs. They're lofty goals, I'm sure we can all agree would be worthwhile to attain. Now, for where we are, a few weeks ago, we agreed unanimously that we wanted to learn more. That's it. That's as far as we've gone up to this point. It is not in the budget we'll be voting on in a few hours and will not be active in our district unless and until this board votes to implement it. Over the upcoming months, I will be bringing open choice to the board in phases. First, we will hear about where the program has been successful and where it has had its challenges. We'll discuss what it could look like here and potential hurdles we could face and the problems it could solve. Once we're done with this phase of discovery, we'll vote on whether open choice can achieve one or all of its stated purposes here in Ridgefield and should therefore move to the next phase. If we vote that it would not be successful, we'll stop right there. If we vote that it could be successful, then we'll begin a discovery and discussion around the financial piece of the puzzle. Once we come to a clear understanding of how open choice could affect RPS financially, we could then vote on whether to join the program. So again, if we agree that open choice would be successful in Ridgefield, and we agree that we were comfortable with the financial aspect of the program, then we would move forward. If either of those is a no, then we will not. Now on to tonight. Regarding our discussion and possible action item on the budget, we will begin with responses to our asks from last meeting from Dr. De Silva and Dr. Hanaway. Then we'll entertain a motion from our board secretary to adopt the superintendent's proposed budget. Once that is seconded, I will entertain motions to amend the proposed budget. If a motion to amend is not seconded, we will look for another motion to amend. If a motion to amend is seconded, then we will discuss and vote on the amendment, not on the budget as a whole, but on the amendment. If a motion to amend is successful, that becomes part of the underlying motion on the budget that is still on the table. Once we've exhausted all motions to amend, we will then vote to approve the superintendent's proposed budget as amended. That will then become the Board of Education's adopted budget, which will then move to the Board of Selectmen to provide their non-binding recommendation regarding our budget to the Board of Finance. The Board of Finance can then choose to either put our adopted budget to town referendum, or they can choose to reduce our budget and then send a town referendum. At referendum, the town can either vote for the budget or against. If the town votes against, then the Board of Finance would reduce the budget and send to the town for a second referendum. After our vote tonight, there is no mechanism for the Board of Education's budget to increase, while there are opportunities for it to decrease. That's all I have for tonight. Dr. Zub?
Sure. Good evening, everyone, and welcome back. So the best news that I can give everyone tonight is that the vaccination window for educators, in addition to other folks, will begin Monday, March 1st. So what that actually means and operationally, I can't tell you yet, but what I can tell you is that we're well prepared to move ahead as quickly as we possibly can beginning Monday. And we'll do whatever we can to support our educators and get in accessing their appointments and getting to their appointments so that we can move along in the interest of our kids and our families, and of course, the safety of our entire community. So that is truly the best news that I can give tonight, and probably better than my budget being passed. But that said, in addition to that, we do have an asynchronous day coming up on March 15th. It is likely that we will be moving forward with the elementary being asynchronous all day. Our educators are going to be expected at the elementary schools to take the Foundations of Reading exam. The State Department did not allow for a pass this year, and so we will need to provide our educators for 2 to 3 hours at least to take that exam. If you remember, we do not have professional learning time in our schedule this year because we front loaded most of that work, which in a normal situation, a normal year, we would have time during our professional learning PD to give our educators an opportunity to access that exam. So March 15th, which is an asynchronous day for all of our faculty, that day, or half of that day, excuse me, will be a full day for our elementary folks. Read Across America begins next week, so we're excited about that. And this week, or this past week, Barlow Mountain had engaged in an awareness week where all students and staff had conversations with literature around diversity, culture, empathy. We had our art teacher, Miss Anderson, have a community art project called Growing Awareness, which was well sought after with our community and excited. Everybody was excited. We had Mrs. Himberland, a grade 5, have our grade 5 students sharing special morning announcements, and a full community of students and staff contributing to an ongoing project that again raises awareness. So thank you to all of those at Barlow Mountain. It seems like that was a great day. And that is it.
Great, thank you. Committee chairs, I know we've had a few committee meetings. Let's start with policy since it's like fresh in your minds.
Very fresh, hot off the presses. So we just had our policy meeting about an hour ago. There will be 2 policies coming out of that meeting that we will be advancing to the full board for the first read in an upcoming meeting. And then we had a few that will go back to the policy committee. We had some follow-up questions on that. And then we also had, that was the makeup from our February 1st policy meeting that was the result of a snow day we had to postpone. So we actually have our next policy meeting next Monday, March 1st, which was our regularly scheduled March meeting.
Thanks. Finance Committee.
Yes, so last Wednesday, February 17th, we had our Budget and Finance Committee meeting at 6 o'clock. You're going to hear tonight most of what we discussed, but we did get the financial report ending January 31st. We did talk about transfers. We got a COVID-19 expenses update. And then we also got an update on student activity accounts as well as the Board of Ed bank accounts. And I think Dawn's going to be discussing a lot of that this evening. So we'll get to hear that. Should I just move into strategic planning, Jonathan?
Go right on in, yep.
All right, so we flowed right from budget right into strategic planning. In strategic planning, it was a good meeting for us because we were able to establish our priorities for this from now through November, through our cycle, November to November cycle. And we're going to be focusing a lot of our work on the transportation. I think we've been discussing that at several board meetings, so that's going to be good. And then we're also going to tackle the feeder pattern from the elementary schools into Scotts Ridge and East Ridge. So there's a couple big projects that we're going to be taking on.
Great. Thank you. Any other, I don't believe there are any other committee meetings, but liaisons? Kathleen?
Energy Task Force met on February 18th. It was an amazing, I learned a lot. We went through the presentation and the slideshow that they're going to be presenting to the Board of Selectmen, again, about the Connecticut plan for reduction of emissions, particularly by 2030, and then going forward. The state's goal is a 33% reduction in emissions. And there were a lot of slides that showed how this could happen. I'm not going to go into all the details, but some of the thinking was how electric buses particularly would be a
Excuse me.
and I said, they talked about some of the other districts that are working on this, particularly with electric buses, in terms of talking about transportation and what kind of money would be available through the state and the government to make this happen. And I said, I would bring all of these data to our strategic planning committee about this, and actually some names of other people in other districts in our DIRG that are also doing this kind of work, and it's very important work. So there is a lot in terms of what will, and it looks like it's doable if we can all work together collaboratively as a town. That's it.
Great, thank you. Other liaison reports? Okay. Moving right along. Approval of January 11th minutes. Do I have a motion? Did anybody hear that?
I heard you.
Rachel's unmuted, but I can't hear her.
I can't either. Well, I think we know what the motion was. Do we have a second? Sean? Okay, comments on the minutes? Nora?
I did find a number of just typo type mistakes,
Sure.
grammatical ones. All right, beginning on page 1, under item 2, reports. At the very end, after section C, there needs to be a period after Ridgefield representatives.
Okay.
Then on page 2, item 4, approval of minutes, at the very end, there needs to be a period.
See it?
And then at the last paragraph on page 2, sort of in the middle, where it says the 2021-22 budget plans for intervention and supports classroom teachers and interventionists, there should be an S after interventionist. And then on the top of page 3, the second sentence that begins the resources proposed, I think it should be instead of in the 2021-22 budget it should be are. And then following that, responsive to the needs of the students and set the stage. And then in the 4th paragraph on page 3, in the last sentence, the district considered the residual impact that COVID-19 would have.
Mhm.
And then in the last paragraph on page 3, in the last sentence, it says, in setting the groundwork for 2021-22, it becomes necessary to restabilize without a D. And last but not least, on page 4, the first full sentence on page 4 should have an apostrophe S.
Okay. Anyone else? All those in favor of approving the minutes from January 11th as amended? Sorry. Did you have one, Kathleen?
No, I was thanking her for her good eye.
Yes, thank you for that. Okay, all in favor? Unanimous, thank you. Up next, discussion and possible action items. First up, the financial report ending January 31st, 2021. Do I have a motion?
Rachel, maybe if you leave and come back in, it'll kick back on for you.
We'll wait for you. Okay, she's back. We can't hear you. In this instance, Ken, you want to read the motion for us?
Sure. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
All right. I move that the Board of Education accept the financial report ending January 31st, 2021.
Second? Rachel seconds. Okay. Dawn, you want to bring us through?
Certainly. As of January 31st, 2021, we have expended or obligated $95,738,000 of our $99.9 million budget appropriation, which represents approximately 96% of the full appropriation. In December, we had made our first filing for our ECR reimbursement and are currently waiting those funds from the state. All budget items are currently trending on budget. We don't have anything that we anticipate to be over budget with the exception of COVID-19 and food service at this time. On the second page under special education, I have updated that for our first filing. Special education budget relies heavily on the status of excess cost reimbursement, which the district budgets at a negative $1,400,000 expense. In other words, we need $1.4 million from the state in order to make the special education budget whole. First filing, as I had mentioned, was in December. The December filing was approximately $1.5 million less than the December filing in 2019. This lower submission is caused by three main factors: lower transportation expense so far this year for the special education students, and an increase in the estimated basic expense from $87,000 to an estimated $92,000 per child. In addition to these two factors, staff assigned to the in-district students are at a lower salary this year than they have been in the past. And some of those staff are not using our insurance, which lowers the expense, the overall expense to the student itself. These factors may have an impact on the reimbursement amount. It is uncertain what reimbursement rate we will receive this time around. Last year, we received a rate of 73.65% of the applicable expenses. However, we do anticipate that the percent reimbursement will be higher this year than it was last year. On energy, we are looking that our electric will be within budget, our oil will be within budget. On COVID-19, if you look at the projection line, you'll see that at this time to date, the ledger account has $830,011.75 of spent unbudgeted COVID funds and an encumbrance of $69,093.76 for a total of $988,105.51. Of this amount, a transfer of $189,888.95 has occurred, approved by the board for the Chromebook purchase balance, which brings the balance down to $709,216.56 on that particular ledger line. More information will follow in my memo when we talk about COVID-19 and in following agenda item. Food service, as you know, is a self-funded fund, and we are monitoring that expense, and I will explain where we currently stand with that. But you can see on the ledger line here that we have, at this point in time, expended sorry, I can't find it, $194,567.96. And we anticipate that there'll be more each month as we go along. On the last page of my report, I wanted to just bring your attention to, and I will update with a comment in this section going forward. Under items that could positively affect our budget, I do have the the reasoning of COVID-19. And where I mean for this positive effect could be that with full distance learning, there's a possibility of some savings for substitutes, a possibility of some savings for transportation, and a possibility of some savings for some overhead in the schools, as well as should we have, which I hope we don't, have a need to close buildings for whatever reason, we should see some savings in that area. So that's some areas that could be positive. And obviously our unbudgeted expenditures would be a negative effect against our budget. Any
Thank you for that.
specific?
Any questions on the financials for January? If not, shall we call a vote? All those in favor of approving the January 31, 2021 financials, raise your hands. That's 8. That's 8-4. Okay. Moving on, transfers. Do I have a motion? Sorry? Rachel, are you able to read the motion for the transfers? Not yet? Call us.
She's okay. She's going to work with John Mansfield, I think, to try to work through her. Oh, maybe she's going to call us.
I think she's going to call in.
Maybe, or call John.
In the meantime, Ken, you want to read the motion to approve the transfers?
Oh, hold on 1 second. It's, I believe that I believe.
And Ken is frozen.
That never happens.
Would someone like to read a motion for me?
All right.
Kathleen,
I move that the Board of Education approve the transfers presented on February 22nd, 2021.
thank you so much. Do I have a second for that? Sean, thank you. Dawn, you want to take us through the transfers?
Happy to. On your sheet, the first 5 transfers are under the high school's request. The first transfer is from their music department. They're looking to transfer $1,899 from their instructional materials for music into their equipment for music. And that is to purchase a bass, which is needed in the music program. The second request under music is they're looking to transfer $600 from music transportation to instructional materials music. And that is to purchase a subscription to Upbeat for remote learning purposes. Under the high school administration, they're looking to transfer from office supplies $1,830 to scheduling materials of $1,830. And that is a need to purchase adaptive scheduler plugin for their power school. On science in the high school, they're looking to transfer $2,852.50 from their transportation oceanography to equipment science. And this is for the a new ice machine that for their science department. They feel that they're not taking oceanography field trips and that the funds are available in order to purchase this new ice machine. On their library, they have a request of $148.74 from equipment repair, $1,000 from instructional material, $42 from equipment, and $135 from membership for a total of $1,225.91. They're looking to transfer from those small areas into the library's collection for additional ebooks, new teaching unit books, and other books requests for going forward. And the last high school request was from their student life office, and they're being proactive for a possible anticipation of a plan B for graduation. And they're looking to transfer $10,000 from transportation student life to graduation expense in preparation for an anticipated possible graduation plan B. Do you want me to continue to the next department or?
Please, let's just go on through them and then we can
Okay,
circle back
facilities.
with questions.
Sure, facilities, high school building repairs, they have a request to transfer $4,767.05 to HAZVAC control services. And this need is to cover the high school exhaust ventilation assessment by a vendor related to COVID. On central office, there's $106,297.72 moved from the salary line of the Director of Technology to management consultants of $86,503 and workers' compensation audit of $19,794. The management consultant is to cover the IT consultant that was filling in during the absence of an IT director. And the workers' comp is to cover the additional expense after the workers' comp insurance, workers' comp insurance went up after the workers' comp audit. And then the last request is from special services, psychologists, a reduction in the, or a transfer from the salary line of psychologists of $37,000 to tutoring purchase service of $37,000. And this is due to an employee who is on unpaid leave and the need to hire from outside in order to cover during that employee's absence.
Thank you for that. Any questions on individual transfers? There being none, should we take a vote? All those in favor of approving the transfers for January, please raise your hands. Nine, unanimous. Thank you. And we can move on to the COVID-19 update. Dawn, you're still up.
Okay, let's run this one through. Okay, the COVID update on your memorandum is as of the expenses are pulled as of February 11th and payroll is through, I believe it was January 31st. Facilities, you can see the first grouping that you have there is facilities, nurses, special education, technology, and curriculum. Those are the departments that have requested some budgeted, unbudgeted expense for COVID needs. What those total up to $1,121,306. And then below that is the salaries. health office paraeducators, building substitutes, custodial overtime, and the COVID-19 liaison. Those are specific to COVID that were unbudgeted, and those salaries total through January 31st at $265,041.80. On the second sheet or second page, those COVID expenses are broken out by categories such as supplies, PPE, partitions, the HAZVAC system, storage containers, outdoor tents, curriculum, technology, equipment. And in addition to that now is the salary expense and then food service. The difference between the first page and the second page is the food service amount, $194,567.96. All in, total expenses is $1,580,915.96. And from that, we have some offsets of some funds we've received. Grant draws are $296,154.15. The transfers that we've had so far, $189,888.95. Other funding of $125,640.64 for a total offset of $611,683.74. Total to be covered at this time is $969,232.22. On the third page is our possible anticipated possible expenses that could occur through the end of the fiscal year. We have the 3 salary lines up there. We have 4 salary lines up there. Food service, a possible additional PPE, protective supplies, training materials, technology, for a total of an anticipated possible expenses of $708,000.
Thank you. Questions? The Finance Committee saw this a few days ago. Anybody else have any questions about this? So this also does not yet take into account the potential use of our carryover account, right? Right, Dawn?
That is correct. Until that occurs or until that materializes, I won't add that to the report. These are just, other than that last page of anticipated, these are actual dollars that actually have occurred.
Right, but then when we look at the to be covered of 969, we do know where at least a portion of that can come from.
A good portion of that is part of the reserve that we will be drawing down on towards the end of the year.
Great.
How much was that reserve again?
I believe the total amount could be up to 700,000. I believe at the time of the meeting, they had pulled in a little less than that based on what our COVID expenses were at that time. So it's somewhere between 6 something and 700,000.
Okay, thank
Down
you.
700, yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Thanks, Dawn. Very well put together.
Yeah.
We will get on to the superintendent's 21-22 proposed budget. Dr. DeSilva, you want to start with some commentary?
Sure. This past January, together with the district's leadership team, we presented a fiscally responsible and educationally sound budget. It's critical to remember that the 1.75% approved budget for this school year required significant cuts from the Board of Education's adopted budget. A strong, reliable budget is necessary in order to meet the district's needs for the 21-22 school year. Our full Saturday workshop, if you remember, that was a long day, evidenced the thoughtfulness of our educators and our school leaders to ensure that all of the elements within the school and district budgets were prioritized as a district and not as independent schools. As a result, the superintendent's proposed budget supports the district in remaining steady and strong, sets the destination, and continuously moves the district forward, both purposefully and incrementally. It does this through solidifying the foundation with organizational systems and also filling in the weak spots so we can move past the fundamentals in years to come and focus more on innovation. The budget sets the stage for the Ridgefield Public Schools to lead, to innovate, and to prepare for future trends. We believe that it's our responsibility to provide Ridgefield children with a world-class education, a district that continues to get better and better, that continues to move and doesn't simply stay afloat, with adults that advocate on their behalf and care deeply about them, and with a safe and secure environment that's both engaging and joyful. The Board of Education and the community provided feedback on the superintendent's proposed budget, all of which is essential and a meaningful part of the budget process. More specifically, we heard the questions and concerns related to elementary literacy and the elementary art program. As a result, we provided the community with a presentation that offered a transparent view into the elementary essentials, including art, as well as a plan for what we would do next. I'd like to reiterate that the administration values all essentials, including the visual arts, and will continue to advocate for its programming across all of our schools. Additionally, as we all know, this budget communicates the need for and a plan for systematic elementary phonics programming in our primary grades, along with associated professional learning. The budget, which is also created in the early fall, includes staff development from Teachers College. That said, I'd like to emphasize that it's important to allow the administration to define the priorities in months to come. This may mean that our professional development funds may focus on a variety of literacy needs. For example, phonological awareness, differentiation, writing, and/or small group instruction. Depending on the priorities, different organizations or sources may fulfill these needs. That said, we will continue to update the Board of Education on the curriculum work that's happening in our schools. On the evening of February 8th, Dr. Hanaway and the elementary principals made a recommendation to the Board of Education of an increase of 1 FTE in art. The board asked the administration to show operationally what the art teacher schedules would look like with 4 FTEs rather than the 3 that we have this year, 1 more FTE than the current model. I'll now turn it over to Dr. Hanaway so she can present the art schedules.
John, are you, oh, right on cue. There he goes. All right, good evening, everybody. John, I'm just gonna have to ask you to scroll as I go. That's a good place to start. So within each color is a teacher, within each box. So we have 4 teachers as we'll go through. And as you can see, each teacher, if you look all the way to the left and all the way to the right, you'll see early school and late school. And so the teacher, this is the mirror of the teacher schedule throughout the day, as it would either be at their early school or at their late school. So we'll take the blue teacher, I'll say, for example, who's assigned at Branchville and at Farmingville. If you note on the A day, because we align this to our 6-day cycle, not a 5-day week, on the A day, the teacher teaches 3 classes, then has the required lunch and prep, and then has classes after that. And then you see the period of time at the end of the day, that 3:18 to 3:25, which is not sufficient time to see students. They may be engaged in dismissal duties to assist at that time.
Dr. Hanaway, may I just clarify a quick question there, just a point there. They're required lunch and prep. So if the Ridgefield Public Schools has a half an hour for children's lunch and a half an hour for children's recess, which is slightly different than other communities that may have 20 and 20. So our children have that full hour. If
Right.
I'm reading the schedule correct, they have from 11:30 to 12:30 as their lunch and their prep, and then from 12:30 to 1:35 as an additional open space. Is that accurate?
That's correct. So the prep, the half-hour prep is lesson planning, which is per the teacher contract. That 12:30 to 1:35 on the A day is what we were describing in our February 8th presentation as additional time for them to ensure that they have everything ready for classes as they need to, which may include a lot of the materials. It may include also a lot of the pieces that they're concerned they don't have enough time for now. It doesn't account for everything. It doesn't account for, the full planning of an art show. It may not account for full beautification of the school, but it does avail for a good amount of time for that. I'm going to jump to the C day on this blue school. AL means Art Leap. So you can see this teacher starts by teaching an Art Leap class first thing in the morning, then has a grade level, then has that open time that can be used for preparation, and then has the lunch prep, and then it has periods at the end of the day. So as you can see here, we tried to minimize the amount of time that this teachers were moving throughout the day. And so I'm going to scroll all the way to the right here, and you'll see there's a numbers, and it says sections. So this teacher will teach throughout the week 29 sections, which means 29 different periods. Not the week, I'm sorry, over the 6-day cycle. You'll notice on the E day, the last period of the day is designated at Farmingville for Rise Art, which is specific at Farmingville and not Branchville, because Branchville doesn't have a Rise cohort. As we scroll down and we look at the green, this is a split between Ridgeberry and Veterans Park. Ridgeberry, not dissimilar from Branchville. You see the Rise cohort there, and you see that we tried to organize it so that there was minimal travel for the teacher. You'll notice on the F day for Veterans Park that there's even more time available, and that's because Veterans Park is our smallest school as it relates to sections. So that would be different than the other schools in terms of the amount of time available at that individual building. As we move to the yellow teacher, you'll see that this teacher is also at Veterans Park and at Scotland. And you'll notice that this teacher on A and B days has travel in the afternoon. So a full period accounted for travel, and that's counted in the sections. And that there's, we decided that if the teacher was going to have to travel to another school, that it made sense to travel to teach Art Leap instead of teaching an one-off class, so that no grade level, or we could minimize grade levels having split art teachers to the degree possible. And we felt like it made a lot more sense that to travel to go to Scotland and to Ridgeberry to pick up sections, it would make more sense to pick up Art Leap. And then again, you'll see that they all have built in the separate preparation time distinct from the lunch and prep. And on most days, they're teaching 5 sections. You'll look on the F day for the yellow, they're teaching 4, but on most days, it's 5. And then the red teacher, this teacher is split between Farmingville and Barlow Mountain. Again, on A day, they would start at Barlow Mountain for Art Leap. We account for travel time as one of the sections. And so consistently, aside from one teacher, they have 29 sections to include travel. It builds in, obviously accounting for their lunch and prep time, but also for extra preparation time. In some cases, they have between 5 and 15 minutes of time in between classes. And when there was minimal time in between classes, we tried to make that a preparation period. Questions?
Dr. Hanaway, can you just move up to the Veterans Park Green teacher?
Mm-hmm.
So on this particular day, let's just say on F day, the teacher teaches from 9:30 to 10:05 and does not teach again until 1:05.
Mm-hmm.
But it's still balanced with all the other teachers, with the exception of that teacher is teaching one less section than
yeah, they're teaching 28 sections. So it's possible that that teacher may take on a responsibility for something across all the schools for art. It's possible that there's something towards all the elementary art programming that's used with the additional time that teacher is afforded.
Questions on the art schedule?
Tina's hand.
Just to clarify, and if I may be reading this incorrect, am I reading this that we'll use Veterans Park? Is Veteran Park have two different art teachers according to the schedule? Because,
Yeah.
okay. So, and then it goes the same for Farmingville, right?
Yes. So in the four teacher model, 2 schools split have two art teachers assigned to them. The other 4 schools only have 1. Aside from Art Leap, you may have, like, that Veterans Park teacher was going to Scotland and to, I think it was Ridgebury, to teach Art Leap, where Scotland and Ridgebury have 1 consistent art teacher. So aside from those individual Art Leap sections, yes, the 2 smaller schools would have 2 different art teachers in them. And so the balance of the schedule is really important to make that sure that the art classroom is accessible and not double booked.
Margaret?
I had a question. I'm assuming that this model is built on what we believe our class sections will be based on the enrollment report projections that we had, right? So, and because we've talked a little bit about the uncertainty with, what might happen next year in terms of perhaps classes breaking with more students coming into district than we anticipated. Is there flexibility in this schedule for such a contingency?
Yes, specifically within the Veterans Park assignment. Yes.
Would that pertain to all schools? So let's say lots of families moved into Barlow. Is there enough flexibility if there was a class break that had to happen in an extra section that the teacher would have to teach?
It would depend. We couldn't guarantee that it would be the teacher already assigned to that building. It may be a teacher from elsewhere in the district, but it would allow enough flexibility for breakage. We would prioritize it to the teacher who's already there, but if that's physically impossible, then it could be a teacher from elsewhere in the district.
Kathleen?
I just want to state it that this is going on the assumption, which I agree, until the whole essentials program and the whole curriculum is looked at, that every student, except for RISE and Art Leap, will have 45 minutes of art, visual arts, not art, visual arts every 6 days. Is that correct?
There's one scheduled period every 6 days, except for Art Leap and RISE Art.
Exactly. So that's going forward as this before we analyze whether that's the appropriate amount of art.
Any other questions on this? Thank you, Dr. Hanaway.
Thank you, Dr. Hanaway. We were also asked to identify the impact of a 3.45% increase and adding the recommended additional art teacher back in the budget. So we were asked not to increase the budget, but to look at the 3.45 and see what the impact would be. So if a motion is made to increase the art teachers by 1, so a total of 4.0 art based on the schedule that Dr. Hanaway just shared, we would need to reduce the budget by about $100,000. That's the salary and the additional benefits. What we are recommending is that we would reduce the subline by $60,000. You may remember we added $20,000 at each level for COVID subs. We are also recommending to reduce the facilities line by $20,000. That's COVID PPE expenses. We will reduce our original budget assumption for the contribution to the town pension by a little bit under $7,400. And we'll also reduce our original budget assumption for transportation diesel by a little bit over $15,000. And both of those are based on recent details shared by the town. While the administration and the elementary principals did not recommend the scenario of 6 art teachers, if a motion is made to increase the art teachers by 3, so a total of 6 art teachers, we would need to decrease the budget by about $300,000. That would mean that we would be adjusting the budget with all that I just described, and further reductions. Our recommendation would be in technology And that would be the upgrading of technology. So we would be returning to our pre-COVID model of 1-to-1, reducing our technology hardware budget by an additional $105,000. We would also be reducing $100,000 in facilities, removing all funds of any school maintenance projects. We truly believe that we need systematic support across our curriculum areas, many of which I think the discussions as of recent have highlighted the need. Now more than ever, the high impact work of curriculum compacting with everything that's happened over the past year and a half, differentiation and assessment cannot be taken for granted. While our educators know that the social, emotional, and academic learning, everything we know about that will tell us that we're going to have significant impacts, not only for this year, but for years to come. And so we need to be best prepared for that. And we also know that we can't underestimate the work that curriculum leaders do have directly on our teachers and really indirectly on our students, but there's a significant amount of work that needs to happen and we need to be prepared for next year. That's it, Jonathan. I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you so much. Do I have a motion?
Before a motion is stated in terms of 4 art teachers, is that what the motion would be?
This will be a motion to approve the superintendent's recommended budget. Once that's live and seconded, then we'll entertain motions to amend.
Can you hear me?
Now we can.
Hey.
Wonderful. Hi, everyone.
Welcome back.
Hi, Rachel.
I missed you guys. Okay, so I move that the Board of Education approve the superintendent's proposed 2021-22 Ridgefield Public Schools operating budget totaling $103,364,072, an increase of $3,451,920 year to year, or a 3.45% increase year to year.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Margaret. Okay, now at this point, we can entertain motions to amend the superintendent's proposed budget. Do I hear any such motions to amend? Kathleen.
While not amending, I want this to be put on the record that although I do not agree that there is enough art in the elementary schools at this time, I agree with what is on the table, that 4 teachers at this time, when we have the new superintendent, elementary supervisor, and the elementary faculty, including the art faculty, looking at the entire scope of the visual, performing arts, essentials, and the entire curriculum next year, so that we can really assess what our students need in terms of every realm of their educational experience. So I agree right now that this is the interim experience. But I needed to put that on there because I think people mix up the arts. There are visual arts, performing arts, and others. So we need to look at the whole thing holistically. That's redundant, but.
Thank you, and very well said. However, 4 art teachers is not yet on the table. Do I have any motion to amend the superintendent's proposed budget?
Yes, Ken, sorry.
Ken.
Start talking. I absolutely agree with Kathleen and what she said, that we do need to look at this holistically. The essentials, all of the essentials, including the arts. But to that end, I propose that we amend the superintendent's proposed budget to include the 4 art teachers as presented this evening.
Thank you. Does that motion have a second? Liz, are you seconding?
Second. I second that. Just to clarify, Ken, you want the amendment to add the 4th teacher, correct?
Yes, that's
no additional total cost to the budget.
No additional total cost. Yes, exactly. As presented with the adjustments outlined by Dr. DeSola.
I second.
Great. Any more discussion around this amendment, or are we ready to vote on the amendment itself? Tina?
Just to follow up on what Kathleen said, I think there's I understand what Dr. Hanaway has shared, what Dr. De Silva has said, and I totally understand. I think Ken said it. These are essentials: music, art, visual arts, performing arts. These are all essentials. But there seems to be, there's a feeling among our elementary parents that the arts being targeted for whatever reason. And I think there's we're getting it. I think the administration gets it, but I think we need to be very transparent with our parents. So I think going forward, we should be talking to the elementary parents, making them understand that there's no reduction per se. And if they, why do they feel like that? I think that's what I go back to. Why do they all feel that there is a huge cut happening and we're not talking about it? Because they feel so passionately about it. I understand this as presented. There are arguments both for it, but I also understand we have to be fiscally conservative. So I think moving forward, it would be really beneficial if we can talk about this for next year. Look at this, why people feel that this is a reduction. I think that's where I go back to. Why do parents feel this is a huge reduction in arts? Why is art being targeted when there are other essentials? And I don't want to use the word specials. I want to call them essentials because they're important for, it could be music for one child, it could be art for another child, it could be PE for another child. So essentials are so important, and they will be more important as we go into the next year. COVID will have untold some kind of there will be consequences mentally, physically, emotionally on children. Some children will use art to cope, some will use more PE. So I think when we look at it, to Kathleen's point, holistically next year, we need to talk about it. And I also think we truly, or at least the administration, needs to talk or address the parent concerns, why parents feel this is a cut, because I think that's the missing piece here. So I support the 4 because we have to be fiscally conservative, but I also think we need to talk about this moving forward and looking at this soon. And we have a new superintendent for curriculum. So I'm hoping, Corey will take this on and we can talk about this in detail.
Thank you. Well
just
said.
a comment.
Thank you. Sean, comment?
Yeah, I just want to piggyback off what Tina said. First off, Dr. Hanaway obviously had done her homework on the 4, 5, and 6 and was very transparent about that. But we as a board, we as a town have known for years that we have underinvested in the curriculum line item in general. And it's not just the essentials that we're calling them. It's across the board. We've underinvested. We've not spent the money. We've not spent the time. And frankly, we haven't had the leadership in place to do that heavy lifting. And I'm glad that we obviously do now, and that we'll get the inspection it requires. So it's not just art. It's not just the essentials. It's across the board. We've got to look at top to bottom our entire curriculum.
Well said. Anyone else commenting on the amendment motion currently on the table?
Yeah, I just want to respond to something that Kathleen and Sean, and just build a little bit. I do think that we should, the 4 for the amendment is a bit of a compromise, and I totally agree that we need to look end to end. What I don't want to do, though, is leave it at 3 and miss, we're saying this is an interim year, but there's our kids that are going through that interim year with us. And so I do think we should listen to the community and listen to our constituents and listen to the parents and teachers, frankly, in our community. So hence my second on this motion and my strong support for it.
Great. Okay, at this point, all those in favor of the motion to amend the superintendent's proposed budget by increasing elementary art to 4 full-time with the reductions to offset as stated by Dr. De Silva, raise your hands. Nine, that's unanimous. Thank you. We can now move on to entertaining other motions to amend. Does anyone else have a motion to amend the budget in any way? Kathleen?
Again, I'm not amending, but because it's out there, there's a lot of misinformation, a lot of people misunderstanding it. And I think Dr. De Silva spoke about it, particularly about the literacy writing program and the money that is going to Teachers College for curriculum development. And Sean, I applaud you for saying that we've been under, financing our curriculum development. And at this point, I think I would love I understand it in some ways, but I'd love someone to talk about how, although we continue with some of the teacher college for the reading and writing, it's not the be all end all, and that it's not an either or, and that there's a lot of curriculum development money going to systematic reading instruction, particularly in the early years. And I hope it's not just for those, because some children need it ongoing. And if someone could just speak to that so that there's not so much misinformation out there in the community. But that being said, particularly for the writing program and for the reading program for children who have broken the code, there are gains for ongoing curriculum development in the reading and writing workshop model until something else is put in place. And I just would like that be there because.
If I may just add on to that, Jonathan, if that's okay.
Sure.
Kathleen, I appreciate that. And I think what's really important is that as our administration group, however things play themselves out in terms of priorities for our elementary program in the area of literacy, is that we communicate that not with just with the Board of Education, but we're communicating that with families so that they have an understanding when they don't have eyes in, right? When we're back to a more traditional experience and they don't have the opportunity now, that they have the opportunity to understand what's happening in our elementary schools. And I think on the other side of it is that it is important for us to be transparent with the board and with the community, while at the same time, we do have to have flexibility to identify the needs of our individual schools, right? And so as we're transitioning into the fall, we have a new assistant superintendent. Obviously, she has a significant background in humanities, and allow her the opportunity to really dive into what our schools independently and collectively need with respect to small group instruction, writing instruction, phonological awareness, and we'll be sure to communicate that back out.
Thank you. Do we have any other motions to amend? There being none, we can go to a vote. All those in favor of approving the superintendent's proposed budget of $103,364,072 as amended to include 4 full-time elementary art instruction leaders. All those in favor? We have a unanimous vote. Thank you all so much. I want to thank the administration, the amount of work, the hours that you've put in through this, through I want to thank the building leaders, the teachers who so well advocated on their own behalf and on their students' behalfs. I want to thank the members of the public that wrote in and called in to give us their input. And I want to thank the Board of Education for asking the hard questions and for putting the work in to get this done. Very pleased. Thank you very much. All right, we can move on. Items of information. Enrollment report first.
Okay, I think that's me. That's okay, Dr. De Silva?
It's all you.
Okay, so this will be quick. It's an item of information. We present the enrollment report each month to you. So you'll see from last month in January that we actually are declined by 7 students from 4,619 to 4,612. You'll see that, there's really no major trend. There's some at the high school, some at East Ridge, but there's a little fluctuation from PK to grade 12, but really not significant. But if there's questions, we can dive into the details.
I don't have any questions. It looks, like you said, very broad, nothing systematic. Anybody have any questions or concerns? Okay.
Okay.
Next item of information is the staffing report.
Okay, so each month we present to you the resignations or retirements that we received since the last board meeting. So, that is a 12-month process for my office. So you'll see who has retired or resigned since that time. So if there's questions about that, I'm happy to answer those as well.
Questions? No. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Last item of information is the BOE meeting timeline. You'll see that our meeting with the Board of Selectmen has been moved up. That is this week in two days on Wednesday night, where we'll be presenting what is now the Board of Education's adopted budget for 2021-22, as well as the capital budget, which we adopted some weeks back. Also to note, we do have coming up in April, the RHS Guidance Department update. I know there's been some questions around that, as well as that Forward Thinking Committee. There is time left open in the schedule during March for us to come back around if there are any adjustments that have to be made to our budget after it goes through the other town boards. We'll put that into one of those meetings, as well as open choice. We'll want to do some of the beginning research as I'd outlined at the beginning of this evening. And again, if you see something that is not on there that you'd like to be, please just reach out to me and we can discuss how and where it best fits. With that, we can move on to correspondence to the report, starting with public comment.
Yes, there is public comment.
Okay.
I'm just so happy you guys could hear me. That's half the battle. Okay, so we have one public comment this evening. Sarah Hanley, 19 Clearview Drive. Thank you to Superintendent Dr. De Silva and the BOE for working hard to find a solution regarding the elementary art program under current budget restraints. I imagine other parents, feel better heard this time around. The reason parents feel visual arts have been cut at the elementary level is because the overall instructional hours have been cut. It is not a feeling, it is a fact that is born out of the reports presented and a comparison with the amount of instructional hours provided in the past. There is less visual art instruction, and that is indisputable. With that said, I appreciate the current solution, which is an improvement, and that you intend to re-examine this next year. Okay. And then correspondence to the board. We have received 11 emails since our last regular Board of Education meeting. 2 emails regarded the Board of Ed public hearing. 1 email regarded the current learning model at the middle school. 2 emails regarded operations of the district. 1 email was about the memory project. 4 emails advocated for the art program in RPS. And 1 email advocated for the district to shift away from TC. That's all.
Thank you. We have reached the end of our agenda. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I so move. Oh, Rachel.
Rachel beat you to it. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
10 seconds. All those in favor? Unanimous. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.